Ferruccio Lamborghini's hands were covered in grease. Across the marble showroom floor stood Enzo Ferrari. Polished shoes, perfect suit, the god of speed himself. Lamborghini tried to explain a problem with his brand new Ferrari 250 GT. The clutch kept burning out. Enzo listened, smirked, and said the words that would start a war. A tractor builder will never understand a Ferrari. Lamborghini drove home, furious. Within 2 years, he would make the man eat those words. Post-war Italy was rebuilding from rubble. Factories were silent, fields empty. But one man from the small town of Cento saw opportunity in what others threw away. Ferruccio Lamborghini wasn't born to wealth. The son of grape farmers in Italy's Emilia-Romagna region, he showed mechanical genius early. While other children played, young Ferruccio dismantled farm equipment and rebuilt it better than before. When World War II erupted, Italy's military recognized his talent. They assigned him to the Rhodes garrison as a vehicle maintenance supervisor. There, surrounded by broken-down trucks and tanks, he learned to improvise with whatever parts he could find. This wartime experience proved invaluable. When Italy surrendered in 1945, Ferruccio returned home to a country devastated by conflict. Agriculture needed to restart immediately, but farmers had no equipment. Ferruccio had an idea. The countryside was littered with abandoned military vehicles. Where others saw junk, he saw engines, transmissions, and differentials waiting for new purpose. He bought leftover engines and turned them into tractors for farmers desperate to start over. His first creation was cobbled together from a 6-cylinder Morris engine, a General Motors differential, and various other military surplus parts. It wasn't pretty, but it worked when nothing else would. His company, Lamborghini Trattori, grew fast. By 1948, he was building tractors from scratch. By 1955, he employed hundreds of workers, producing 400 tractors monthly. Within a decade, he was one of Italy's wealthiest industrialists. He loved machines, engines, perfection, and with wealth came new toys, sleek sports cars from the most famous name in Italy, Ferrari. The Italy of the 1950s was transforming. The economic miracle had begun. Industrial production doubled, and a new, wealthy class emerged. For these industrialists, a Ferrari wasn't just transportation. It was the ultimate status symbol. Ferruccio bought his first Ferrari in 1958, a 250 GT Coupe. He followed it with a 250 GT Berlinetta, then a 250 SWB Competizione. Each cost more than most Italians earned in years. At first, owning Ferraris was a dream. But Ferruccio began noticing something no one dared say aloud. Ferraris were fast, but fragile. Each breakdown sent him back to the factory, wallet open, pride bruised. The clutch problems particularly infuriated him. For a man who built machines that plowed fields for 12 hours straight, a sports car that needed constant repair seemed inexcusable. Finally, he took one apart in his own workshop. The clutch, the same one burning out again and again, was identical to the heavy-duty unit he used in his tractors. He thought, if my machines can survive the fields, why can't Ferrari build one that survives the road? So he went straight to the source. The meeting took place at Ferrari's Maranello factory in 1963. The contrast couldn't have been starker. Ferruccio, the self-made man from farming stock, facing Enzo, the aristocrat of speed. When Enzo Ferrari dismissed him with that single sentence, Ferruccio's rage turned into resolve. I'll build a car so good, even Ferrari will want one. He gathered a small team of engineers, most secretly frustrated ex-Ferrari men. Giotto Bizzarini, who had designed the legendary Ferrari 250 GTO, joined first. Then came Giampaolo Dallara, a young engineering prodigy. Both had clashed with Ferrari's notoriously difficult personality. They sketched through the night, borrowing nothing from Maranello except ambition. Ferruccio's vision, a grand touring car that was powerful and comfortable, something you could drive fast and arrive fresh. He named the prototype 350 GTV. The timing was perfect. Italy's economic boom had created a market for luxury goods. The country that once struggled to feed itself now produced fashion, film, and design that captivated the world. Lamborghini's venture wasn't just a car, it was part of Italy's renaissance. But investors laughed. Magazines ignored him. Ferrari dismissed it as a vanity project. Then came the Turin Auto Show, 1963. Crowds formed around a sleek silver car with a charging bull on the badge. The bull, his zodiac sign Taurus, faced Ferrari's prancing horse head-on. Italy had a new gladiator. The first customers were skeptical. Why buy from a tractor maker? But when they heard the engine, the smooth 12-cylinder roar built by ex-Ferrari engineer Giotto Bizzarini, they stopped laughing. This wasn't just any V12. Lamborghini's 3.5-litre power plant delivered 280 horsepower when Ferrari's comparable 250 GT offered only 240. And while Ferrari's engines screamed at high RPMs, Lamborghini's purred with torque across the entire range. The engine itself represented a philosophical difference. Ferrari built engines for racing, then adapted them for the road. Lamborghini designed his specifically for grand touring, smooth, reliable power without compromise. Reviews stunned the industry. The 350 GT wasn't just fast, it was civilized. No rattles, no overheating, just effortless power. Ferruccio sent one final jab to his rival. My cars don't need to win races. They just need to run. This wasn't just bravado. Ferrari had built his empire on racing victories. Since 1929, his cars had dominated tracks across Europe. The road cars were almost an afterthought, a way to fund the racing team. Lamborghini took the opposite approach. He had no interest in racing's expenses and complications. His cars would be judged on the road, not the track. Yet success brought new challenges. Every year Ferrari launched something faster, flashier. Lamborghini refused to play that game. He wanted beauty, not trophies. That philosophy led to his masterpiece. In 1966, 4 young engineers worked after hours on a secret project. A mid-engine design meant only for fun. The team, Dallara, Paolo Stanzani, Bob Wallace, and designer Marcello Gandini, were all under 30. They represented a new generation of Italian engineering talent. Ferruccio saw it and hesitated. Mid-engine cars were for racetracks, not highways. But when the prototype, Miura, rolled out in orange paint under the Geneva lights, the crowd gasped. The world's first supercar had arrived. The Miura was impossibly low, sculpted like liquid metal, with an engine visible behind glass. It didn't just beat Ferrari. It redefined what a road car could be. What made the Miura revolutionary wasn't just its looks. The transversely mounted V12 engine sat directly behind the driver, creating perfect weight distribution that Ferrari's front-engine GT cars couldn't match. The result? A 170 miles per hour top speed and cornering that made Ferrari's finest feel like luxury sedans by comparison. The name itself carried meaning. Miura was a legendary breed of Spanish fighting bull, a direct challenge to Ferrari's prancing horse. Every Lamborghini since would be named after famous bulls or bullfighting terms. Newspapers called it the bull that gored the horse. The Miura changed everything. Suddenly Ferrari seemed old-fashioned. Enzo, now in his 60s, faced a rival who had accomplished in 3 years what had taken him decades. Success came faster than Ferruccio expected. Orders flooded in, factories expanded, and expectations exploded. He still ran his tractor business and a new heating equipment company. Perfectionism spread him thin. The late 1960s brought social upheaval to Italy. Labor strikes paralyzed factories. Student protests erupted in cities. The years of lead had begun, a period of political terrorism and economic uncertainty. Then came the 1970s, oil crisis, inflation, strikes. The 1973 oil embargo quadrupled gas prices overnight. For cars that consumed fuel like the Miura, this was catastrophic. People stopped buying supercars. In 1 year, Lamborghini Trattori collapsed under debt, and Ferruccio sold 51% of his car company. He walked away from the empire built on defiance. He retired to his vineyard, saying simply, "I proved my point." The timing was poignant. Ferruccio returned to his agricultural roots, making wine on his estate at Lake Trasimeno. He had come full circle, from farmer's son to industrial titan, and back to the land. But the cars carried his spirit, confident, loud, unstoppable. After Ferruccio left, others took control, but his philosophy stayed. Every Lamborghini since carries 2 traits born from that first insult: elegance and rebellion. The Countach, with its impossible scissor doors and fighter jet angles, wasn't just a car, it was automotive theater. While Ferrari's 308 GTB played it safe with traditional proportions, Lamborghini's wedge-shaped masterpiece looked like it had arrived from another planet. Throughout the economic turmoil of the 1970s and 80s, Lamborghini changed hands repeatedly. Swiss investors, French brothers, Even Chrysler took control for a time. Yet somehow, through bankruptcy and uncertainty, the Charging Bull survived. The Diablo, the Aventador, the Huracan, each designed to shock, not to blend in. Where Ferrari chased precision, Lamborghini chased emotion. One built race cars, the other built dreams. This rivalry continues today. Ferrari's clinical perfection versus Lamborghini's raw drama. The F8 Tributo's refined aerodynamics against the Aventador SVJ's brutal aggression. Two approaches to the same goal, born from that single moment of disrespect. In 1993, Ferruccio Lamborghini died at 76. He lived long enough to see his company survive its darkest days and emerge under Volkswagen Group ownership in 1998. Today, Lamborghini produces more cars than ever before, while maintaining the outrageous design philosophy he inspired. Ask any driver which one turns more heads, and they'll point to the Bull. It's easy to see this as a car rivalry, but really, it's about what happens when pride meets vision. Ferruccio didn't start a company. He started a movement, the belief that greatness can come from insult, that arrogance can spark innovation. His story embodies post-war Italy itself, resourceful, ambitious, transforming from agricultural society to industrial powerhouse through sheer determination. Every entrepreneur who's ever been told, "You can't," carries a bit of Lamborghini in them. Every person who's ever been underestimated knows that sting, and the fire it can light. When Enzo Ferrari told a tractor builder to know his place, he never imagined that place would be right beside him in the history books. From the fields of Cento to the streets of Monaco, Lamborghini's name became a symbol of revenge turned into art. And all because one man refused to stay in his lane. History is filled with these forgotten rivalries, moments when insults sparked empires and changed our world forever. We're uncovering more of these hidden stories every week. Which historical rivalry would you like us to explore next? Let us know below.